The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN Emini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things Emini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro. Joining us today, Mr. Michael Borg. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Today is Friday, 13th day of December, 2024. That's right, Friday the 13th. Boo. Anyway, wonder how Friday the 13th originally got such a bad rap. I bet there's history behind that. Anyway, happy Friday. Today will be a abbreviated session. Michael will not be able to join us as he normally does 50 minutes into the broadcast. So, we're just going to dive right in. And sorry for the late start. Sometimes life happens. Now, the devotional topic that we're on right now, from humbug to hallelujah, a 5-day Christmas transformation. And we're in day 4 of 5. Of course, if you missed the first 4 days, or the first 3 days, you can always catch it on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CFRN. Our scripture today is James 2, verses 1 through 13. And I'll share with you from the Message translation. My dear friends, don't let public opinion influence how you live out our glorious Christ-originated faith. If a man enters your church wearing an expensive suit and a street person wearing rags comes in right after him, and you say to the man in the suit, "Sit here, sir. This is the best seat in the house," and either ignore the street person or say, "Hey, better sit here in the back row." Haven't you segregated God's children and proved that you are judges who can't be trusted? Listen, dear friends, isn't it clear by now that God operates quite differently? He chose the world's down and out as the kingdom's first citizens, with full rights and privileges. This kingdom is promised to anyone who loves God. And here you are abusing these same citizens. Isn't it the high and mighty who exploit you, who use the courts to rob you blind? Aren't they the ones who scorn the new name, Christian, used in your baptisms? You do well when you complete the royal rule of the Scriptures. Love others as you love yourself. But if you play up to these so-called important people, you go against the rule and stand convicted by it. You can't pick and choose in these things. specializing in keeping one or two things in God's law and ignoring others. The same God who said, "Don't commit adultery," also said, "Don't murder." If you don't commit adultery but go ahead and murder, do you think your non-adultery will cancel out your murder? Nope, you're a murderer, period. Talk and act like a person expecting to be judged by the rule that sets us free. For if you refuse to act kindly, you can hardly expect to be treated kindly. Kind mercy wins over harsh judgment every time. It was James 2, verses 1 through 13. Today we're talking about extending mercy. Why is it that forgiving the people closest to us can feel so impossibly hard? Love, as the proverb says, may cover a multitude of sins, but some wounds feel as if they cut too deeply to be healed. And around the holiday table, you may find yourself face to face with someone you've struggled to forgive for years. You might not even remember what it was they did that you've failed to forgive them for. You just know you don't like them now. Scrooge, on his final sobering journey with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, is forced to reckon with the damage he inflicted on those closest to him. The people he wronged through his greed and cold-heartedness, like his nephew Frederick, faithful Bob Cratchit, and even strangers who became looters in his home. Scrooge's life was defined by his refusal to extend mercy. The question is, will we let it define ours? Who in your life has left scars like the ones Scrooge made? Maybe it's a parent whose choices tore your family apart. Maybe a friend who abandoned you when you needed them most. Or a child whose destructive path weighs heavily on your heart. Forgiving those we care about isn't easy, especially when their actions have left us wounded. But in A Christmas Carol, both Frederick and Bob Cratchit choose to forgive Scrooge despite all he had done. Their mercy not only freed Scrooge, but also allowed them to move forward unburdened by bitterness. Mercy, as Jesus reminds us, isn't just a kindness to the one who's wronged us. It's a way to set ourselves free. Matthew 5:7, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." When you're holding a grudge against somebody, when you're bitter with somebody, that doesn't hurt them. It hurts you. So when you forgive them, truly forgive them in your heart. Now, forgiving and forgetting is two different things. But forgiving, when you forgive someone, you free yourself, not them. Jesus, who showed us what mercy truly looks like, even towards those who least deserve it, calls us to do the same. It's a challenging request, especially when forgiveness requires us to let go of justified anger. But James puts it plainly. There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when He judges you. Forgiving others doesn't just lift them off our emotional hook. It frees us from the weight of carrying around all that baggage, all that resentment. So, who do you need to forgive this Christmas? The person might be closer than you think. Perhaps just a hallway away or a phone call waiting to happen. Are you willing to take that step? Pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for your mercy and love. Help us to show the same mercy to others, treating everyone with fairness and compassion, regardless of status or appearance. Teach us to live out our faith through kindness and justice, remembering that mercy triumphs over judgment. May our lives reflect your grace, and may we honor you by loving our neighbors as ourselves. It's in Jesus' name where we believe and pray. And everybody said, Amen. There is a story, a true story, of a pastor of a very large church. We're talking mega church. He got up one Sunday morning and put on rags. I mean, he made the normal hobo look like he was going to a gala. And he got to the church before any of the congregation showed up. And he sat down outside the church. And as all the parishioners started to show up, hundreds upon hundreds of them, everyone walked past the hobo sitting over in the corner and just went in and took their seat in the church. After a few uncomfortable moments, when the service was supposed to begin, the back doors opened and in came the hobo. And he shuffled down the aisle. The security team started to close in on him from behind. He stepped up onto the pulpit, turned around, pulled the rags off of his head, and they realized that dirty face was their pastor. Now, I wish I could remember the name of the church. It's in California. It's not the guy who wrote the famous book that gave all his money back. It's not him, but it's another big name. And it is a true story. You can Google it and find out who it is. But think about that. Nobody had time for the man in rags. But yet that man was the one they call pastor. Come Judgment Day, there are going to be people who face that kind of a judgment. So, not just this Christmas season, but throughout the rest of our lives, let us make a conscious choice to treat everyone, no matter what their status, with kindness and dignity. And with that, we'll take a look at the numbers from around the world. Yeah, it wasn't Saddleback Church. No. It was another big one. Okay. Well, you probably know we're having a down day in the markets. Let me give you the numbers starting here in the U.S. with the cash markets, or the indices as they're called. The Dow's down 110 points. NASDAQ is down 40. S&P 500 down 11. And the Russell 2000 down 15. No movers, no shakers, but all four in the red again today. Could this be the start of a thing? Well, we'll see. And the commodity basket, crude oil, is up $1.19, trading 71.21 last. It's a gain of 1.75%, or $1,190 per contract traded. Gold down 29 bucks again today, trading 26.79.70 last. That's a drop of over 1%. Silver, you're breaking my heart here. Down 64 cents, trading 30.97 last. That's a drop of over 2% and well over $2,500 per contract traded. In the Asian markets at the close, Nikkei fell 378 points, 1%. Shanghai dropped 69 points, that's 2%. The Hang Seng fell 425 points, that's well over 2%. And in the European markets at the close, FTSE down 11, the DAX down 20, the CAC down 11. So we had a red day in Asia. It was a red day for the UK. And yes, it is a red Radio Friday here in the US of A. I guess if we're going to get a Santa Claus rally this year, Santa needs to start loading that sleigh. Let's take a look at the news. 29-year-old Travis Timmerman was freed from a Syrian prison cell this week, one of at least 2 U.S. citizens who went missing under the Assad regime. The U.S. has asked leading rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham for his help in locating journalist Austin Tice, who's been missing since 2012. Wow, that's 12 years. We pray he's still alive. Timmerman was last seen 7 months ago in Hungary before he was discovered barefoot this week in a Damascus suburb. In an interview with CBS, he said he illegally crossed from Lebanon to Syria by foot while on a Christian pilgrimage. Timmerman said that upon his arrest, he was allowed to use the bathroom only 3 times per day, but was otherwise well cared for and fed. Roughly 150,000 people, mostly Syrians, have gone missing under the Assad regime, with nearly 60,000 believed to have been killed or tortured in prison cells. This rebel leader, which ended the regime's 54-year rule this week, has vowed to close the prisons. And the ousted leader is been given cover in Russia. Dozens of scientists issued a warning yesterday, urging others to end research on mirror cells. And that's mirror as in, you look in the mirror in the morning and comb your hair. Such a microbe, potentially 10 to 30 years away, was likened to the possibility of creating a second tree of life. While it's not clear why all DNA is made up of right-handed molecules, while proteins are made up of left-handed amino acids, I, 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 I'm not a scientist. I am left-handed though. In recent years, scientists have managed to create right-handed proteins mirroring those in our bodies. These proteins take longer to break down and may lead to treatments for HIV and Alzheimer's. However, scientists now warn building other mirror elements of a cell could lead to a viable mirror microbe within years. They say such bacteria could evade not only humans' immune defense system, but all organisms' immune defenses, faster than researchers can devise a mirror antibiotic to end a pandemic. The group of 38 scientists include 2 Nobel laureates and Dr. Craig Venter, who led the private effort to sequence the human genome in the 1990s. Now, that was a major milestone in the development of civilization when Dr. Venter sequenced the human genome. It led to all this 24andMe and all these criminals that committed crimes, 20, 30, 40 years ago, being tracked down through their DNA. Now, that's a pretty smart guy, and he's saying you're about to open a Pandora box that you may not be able to close. I hope they follow him. President Joe Biden commuted the sentences of roughly 1,500 prisoners and pardoned 39 nonviolent offenders yesterday, the largest single-day act of clemency by a U.S. president since records began in 1900. The majority of those whose sentences were commuted were on home confinement since the pandemic. The decision came a week after the president unconditionally pardoned his son Hunter of all gun and tax convictions, walking back assurances he would not do so. More pardons are expected in the coming weeks, with Biden reportedly considering preemptively pardoning officials who investigated the January 6, 2021 storming of the U.S. Capitol. The U.S. Constitution's Article 2 grants the president broad power to pardon federal prisoners, which removes guilt, or commute their sentences, which means to lessen them, except in impeachment cases. Every U.S. president serving a full term has used this power, commonly used towards the end of a president's tenure. Well, there you go. Let's look at the markets. Broadcom soared more than 20% today. It's up, still up 19.5%. As the chip maker touted its massive opportunity in the artificial intelligence market during a quarterly earnings call the prior evening. Broadcom CEO Hock Tan said the company expects its custom AI chips will generate between 60 and 90 billion in revenue over the next 3 years from its 3 existing hyperscaler customers, whom the company did not name. Tan reiterated his belief that each of these 3 hyperscalers will deploy 1 million clusters of its custom AI chips called XPUs by 2025. From Bloomberg, U.S. President Joe Biden's $400 billion green bank has just weeks to close billions of dollars in deals to finance green technology before handing the keys to the Trump administration. The Energy Department's Loan Programs Office has provided crucial support for companies deploying first-of-its-kind technology and large projects that banks typically shy away from. Among other loans under Biden, LPO has made a record $9.2 billion offer to Ford Motor Company to finance building 3 battery factories and provided $1.5 billion to Holtec International to restart a shuttered nuclear power plant. Yet more than $40 billion in conditional commitments could be in jeopardy once President-elect Donald Trump takes office. Since the election, LPO has announced a $4.9 billion loan guarantee to renewables developer Invenergy LLC for a high-voltage transmission line project, a $6.6 billion conditional loan to Rivian Automotive, and a $7.5 billion loan for a joint venture between Samsung SDI and Stellantis NV to create battery manufacturing plants in Indiana. It's still possible the Energy Department has time to close on those commitments, but it won't be easy, said Kennedy Nickerson, who formerly worked as a policy advisor in the Loan Program Office. At his last post-FOMC press conference, 2 days after the election, Jerome Powell, or Jay as they call him, he said the election will have no effects on our policy decisions, and we don't comment on fiscal policy. And just to be sure, I'm not going to talk about anything that relates directly or indirectly to the election. It might be tougher for Powell to refrain from considering and commenting on fiscal policy and its effect on the economy once Donald Trump retakes office. While any president's agenda has the potential for some economic effect, there are a unique number of unknowns related to Trump's plans. Will he indeed impose mass deportations? How much are tariffs a bargaining chip? And how many will actually go into effect? And what will be the impact on global trade? Will tax cuts just be extended, or will there be new, deeper cuts? Inquiring minds want to know. As Bitcoin continues to gain traction on the global stage, questions arise about who will lead the next wave of adoption. Roundtable anchor Rob Nelson and Steve Gutterman, CEO of Griffin Digital Mining, delved into this topic, discussing whether sovereign wealth funds, a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve, or corporate adoption will emerge as the strongest narrative in the late cycle. Rob Nelson highlighted his belief that major corporations starting to put more Bitcoin on the books is inevitable, while raising the potential for sovereign wealth funds, such as those of Saudi Arabia, to venture into the space. What leads the way, he asked, presenting the interconnected scenarios shaping the future of Bitcoin adoption. Steve Gutterman offered a broad perspective, noting, "I think all of the above," though he stopped short of predicting a specific sequence. "I think it's all coming, and I think that we could expect to see all of it within the next several years." An incoming Trump administration looks increasingly pro-crypto. Both chairs of the House Financial Services Committee and the Senate Banking Committee are notably pro-crypto, in Republicans French Hill and Tim Scott. The latter even spoke at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville this past summer. Fundstrat analyst Sean Farrell told Coinage this week that a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve could push Bitcoin to 500,000. Ikaji asset management founder Travis King echoed that sentiment, predicting it could trigger a global race to scoop up Bitcoin. And our last bit of news. The Nasdaq 100 paired a more than 1% advance after reaching a new all-time high for the second time this week, as the surge in Broadcom powered gains across the entire chip technology complex. As a result, U.S. Treasuries fell. That's the news I have for you today. What is this popping up on my screen just in? What's just in? VanEck, $118 billion VanEck, that's an equity firm, predicts $180,000 Bitcoin, and the U.S. will embrace a strategic BTC reserve in 2025. Okay, that's just their opinion. So, okay, let's bring it home with the local news. That would be Logic 247. Where'd it go? I just had it. Here it is. All right. Logic 247 is our 24/7 around-the-clock E-mini alert service. Now, it's not just E-minis. It's also crude, gold, silver, bonds. Over the last 332 weeks, we've issued over 18,600 individual handcrafted alerts. And we've averaged on a weekly basis 20% or less of the alerts being stopped out based on market structure and a simple process we teach all of our passport holders in their one-on-one mentoring sessions. Now, Valerie did this recap this morning at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. Some things have changed since then, and I've issued some additional alerts. So she'll finalize the recap for the week this afternoon or tomorrow morning at the latest. But just this week alone, up to from the time the markets opened Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern to 6:30 a.m. Eastern this morning, we issued a total of 65 individual alerts. One never triggered. We were still waiting on the outcome of 10 at the time she did the alert. That gave us 54 actionable alerts, of which 4 or 7% would have been stopped out based on market structure and that simple process we teach all of our passport holders. So, it seems like the easy way to make money is just trade the alerts. Don't do it. I mean, you can trade the alerts, sure, but make sure you use them for the purpose intended, to learn how to read a chart. If you want to learn how to trade for a living, first you got to learn how to read the charts. You got to understand how price flows. You've got to be able to look at any market, any time frame, and with our humble set of indicators, instinctively know what the next high probability move is. Nobody knows what's going to happen next in the market, but we've proven over 332 weeks that you can know what the next high probability move is with a great degree of certainty. 20% of the time, it seems like the market just does the thing you don't expect. We can live with that. So again, use them as they're intended, okay? Because once you learn how to read a chart, nobody can ever take that away from you. Now, the logic alerts can come out anytime around the clock. They have an entry price, an initial target, sometimes additional targets, and then a final trade to target. But our original alert service, the concierge trade alerts, they're different. They don't come out around the clock. They are published historically shortly after the Globex open. But you'll notice now, I'm on Mountain Standard Time. So the way Telegram works is it reads the clock on your computer. If you're on the East Coast, you can look at this exact same in the same channel, and it's going to say, if you're on the East Coast, it's going to say 5:55. The point I'm trying to get across is I issued these targets last night, not after the bell or at the bell. There really is no bell for the Globex session. Maybe I'll get one. I published them 5 minutes before the open so that everyone could be positioned to take advantage of whatever happened when the market opened in 5 minutes. This is the S&P 500 E-mini futures, the Dow, the Russell, crude oil, NASDAQ, gold, silver, and bonds. So all of our members and all of our trial members had every one of these targets last night, 5 minutes before the Globex session opened at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you're a member or trial member, be sure to read this information here. And if there's anything you don't understand, ask me so that I can explain it to you. Okay? Now, let's go to the daily chart of the S&P. I explained yesterday why we always look at the S&P. Because it is the bellwether, and the other indices ultimately follow the direction of the S&P, and today's markets kind of prove the point. We did say yesterday that if we broke below, now you see how we found support at the 62% fib extension. 1, 2, 3, 4 days in a row. But not today. Today we've broken below. Now what was this low right here? That was 60.39.75. What's today's low? 60.42. So we haven't quite taken out that low right there. This is Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. So even though we spiked that 62% fib extension on Tuesday, we closed right at it. So we got to drop a little bit more, and then that's going to put us, and I circled this during the workshop last night, the members only workshop. When price reverts to the mean or pulls back to the BBC, that's the green line, it's called the BBC. It stands for bull, bear, cross. When price crosses below the green line, we're bearish and expect lower prices. When price closes above the green line, we're bullish and expect higher prices. Now, the pullback, whether it's from below or above holds more often than it doesn't. But we do know that eventually price will trade through the BBC. It keeps the markets fluid and tradable. Okay. The pullback held, the pullback held. And then right here, this was very interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive days. The pullback held. Just as this is interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4 days. That 62% fib extension held its ground. The way things look, now last night, okay, we had this wick. This was a green candle until it wasn't. As it approached, when the markets opened last night, blue and climbing, I talked yesterday about this on the broadcast. When blue and climbing gets directly above price, that's probably going to be resistance in most cases because it's on its way to turning into red and falling. And last night, when the markets opened, red and falling showed up. So now we're below the 62% fib extension. We got red and falling overhead. The pullback holds more often than not. Notice on these days when it didn't hold, see how much red and falling there was? Okay. And on these days where it held, there was just a little bit of red and falling. And so the distance to the daily BBC, there's not a lot of red and falling. So this pullback may very well hold. And if price spikes it a little bit, then there's the 50% fib extension, which should act as support. And then if price consolidates at that 50% fib extension, it's going to run into this trend line here that I drew last night, just to make sure I still could draw a trend line. Stefan's the king of the trend lines. He does a great job, and he posts so many charts. He gives so much back to the community. If you're not watching his charts that he posts every day in the discussion group, you really should be. He has been a tremendous gift to our community. Thank you. So that's where we are, big picture. Now, all the alerts, the logic alerts and the concierge trade alerts, are created using the 30-minute chart. Nothing magic about 30 minutes, just the time frame I chose years ago. And if it ain't broke, leave it alone. So, this was the opening candle last night. Now, 5 minutes ahead of the open, everybody had these targets. But we know that price has to overcome the BBC to make a run at the target. And that didn't happen. Also, we know that in order to make a run at the short target, price has got to take out this low from yesterday. And that didn't happen. So we ran into resistance, which whenever price drops to a zone, we expect support. When we rally up to a zone, we expect resistance. When price encounters a zone, 70% of the time you're going to get this, consolidation. 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 20% of the time you'll get rejection. 10% of the time you'll get the slice. So we got above the BBC. See, we had blue and climbing, okay, and that's bullish. We finally closed on the 130 30-minute candle. We got above the BBC. And so this candle opened at 60, 69 half, let's just call it 60, 70. And it ran up 10 points to 60, 80. It only takes 2 points to get your goal for the day. Now, we did spike the zone a little bit, but I want you to look at the red crosshair. Okay. Look at where my cursor is and then follow that red line across. Look, going left. The vertical lines, they separate today Friday, here's Thursday, here's Wednesday. Back here, if I go back, it'd be Tuesday. So, would we expect resistance here? Absolutely. Until proven otherwise. And that's exactly what we got. Okay. That resistance sent the market looking for support. So it came down to the BBC, and then it bounced all the way back up to red and falling. This was a green candle all the way up. And then it ended up closing below the BBC. That was the 9:30 opening candle. And that set the stage for this huge move down. We hit the zone support. We bounced just a little bit. And then it's kind of like the bottom fell out. This low right here. If we look left, we could drop a little bit further to the low of this candle from Tuesday. Okay, that's how you use market structure. Okay, this area here, buyers were just coming in early, but we hit the step line, and that can act as resistance when it's directly above price, as it was here. And so that sent price back down to where we are now. So we hit the long target, we hit the short target. On the Dow, we opened right at the zone, consolidated sideways, and by the way, this is the lowest weekly zone for the Dow. Now by close of business today, based on tomorrow marks 15 years since we started publishing the zones, and based on 15 years of history, by the close of business today, price should be at or above this lowest weekly zone. Are there weeks when that doesn't happen? Yes. Do I have a suspicion this might be one of those weeks? I do. So I guess next week I'll just have to go back to the drawing board and refigure this whole thing out. No, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, it happens. It happens, but it's pretty rare. 52 weeks in a year, over 15 years. It's probably happened, I don't know, 20 times, 30 times maybe. I haven't kept track of it because it's such a rare occurrence, but this just might be one of those weeks. Now, we consolidated along the zone. And by the way, the zones are published Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. Once they're published, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change in any way whatsoever. So if it closes below it, it closes below it. When I do the zone Sunday night, will I change anything because of the fact that we may close below the lowest zone this week? Not at all. Not a chance. So we rode blue and climbing up to the BBC, and we closed above it. And we really made a decent run. at the long target. I mean, there's tons of room there to get you go for the day on the way up. But this is as far as price goes. This little area right here. Okay. That rolled us over, sent us down to the zone. We consolidated, pulled up to the BBC, the pullback held, and that puts us where we are now. The Russell. This is where we opened last night, and we dropped in that first candle right to the zone. This candle opened 23.66 and dropped to 23.59. It's about 7 points. You only need 2 points to get you go for the day. So if you trade the Russell, you could have been done in the first 30 minutes last night. Done for the day. So we bounced off that target, came back to it again, consolidated, blew and climbing, took us up and through the BBC, but we couldn't take out that high. We rolled over, came down through the short target, and it looks like we're heading for the lowest weekly zone this week on the Russell. It's been a down week, kind of across the board. Now, notice on the way down, you had price, the step line, red and falling. Now, what's changed? The step line has crossed from the left side of red and falling to the right side. And we got a nice little doji here. So what does that tell a technical trader? Or one of our technical traders anyway, that there's now a high probability that price is going to attempt to retrace back to the BBC. Price always reverts to the mean. And these are the signs. That big doji right there. This is a 30-minute candle. It opened and closed at the same price. It was green, it ran up. It was red, it ran down. But it closed exactly where it opened. Now, you don't always find a doji at every reversal. But at many reversals, you will find a doji. So when this happens, this is not a trade alert in and of itself. I would want to see price, because red and falling is now directly above price. So is the step line. So I would want to see price get above both of those before I would consider a counter trend trade back to the BBC. And the Logic 247 channel, those 18,600 plus individual alerts are all trend trades based on the 30-minute chart, price, and the BBC. In other words, when price is below the BBC, the only alerts I put in the Logic 247 channel are short alerts. When price is above the BBC, I only put long alerts. Now that we're back below, if I were going to put out an alert, I wouldn't. Because of these conditions I just discussed that tell me price is at least going to make an attempt to go back to the BBC. I have two good reasons. This huge doji and reading candlesticks. That's not the latest thing to come down the pike. Okay? They've been around about 400 years. Candlestick trading was invented by the Japanese rice traders. Now, fibs go back to 14th century. Candlestick reading, 400 years. In fact, while I wouldn't put out an alert, if I was actually going to put on a trade, I would go probably 2352 to 2355. The reason I don't put counter trend trades in the logic channel is because I'm teaching new people how to trade. And a trend trade has a higher probability than a counter trend trade. It's like the difference between swimming upstream and downstream. Now, once you learn to trade with the trend, if you want to start counter trend trading, then that's fine. Now, I know in the live training room we've kind of thrown a lot of that stuff out the window with the advent of the new divergence trades. Okay, so I'm talking about something that's been around for a whole lot of years, and so far everything with the divergence trading looks real good. Okay, and I have no reason to think it won't stand the test of time. I don't have any reason to think it won't. Price flow is the same across all markets and all time frames since the inception of the markets. It's a never-ending cycle. Support to resistance, back to support, back to resistance, over and over, again and again. So, let's see what happens. NQ. We had a gap higher open on the NQ last night. I think there was some earnings that came out at 4:15, 15 minutes after trading of stocks stopped. Okay, so this candle, the first candle last night, opened at 21,721. So 21, 31, 41. So about 24 points at $20 a point. You only need 5 points to get your goal for the day. So we overshot the target. See this resistance that was established yesterday. That's same old, right? Resistance will always send the market looking for support. And it found support times 2. Remember, the pullback to the VVC holds more often than not. And when we drop to a weekly zone, we expect support till proven otherwise. So once this thing turned blue and climbing, it took us up to the target again, continued on, a little consolidation at the zone, then we got a leg, didn't quite make it to that rounding top up there, and then we pull back to the VVC, and once again the pullback held and shot us up here, which well overcame. How far back would I have to go? Oh, I have to go a long way. That's a new all-time historic high, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we had 2 of those this week. Must have been this one and then this one. Fascinating. Okay, so along comes the See, where's the Wall Street open? This green candle was the Wall Street open, but the next candle gave it all back. Found support at the weekly zone, bounced up to red and falling, and then dropped to the zone below, where it's been consolidating for hours. You can have this kind of consolidation, or you can have this kind, wide-ranging consolidation. Now, this low right here, you see right there where the step line crossed red and falling? Someday I'm going to teach you guys to watch for that. It's a pretty good tool. Crude oil. Here's where we opened last night. And we knew we had a short target here, and we were below the BBC. So you could have just sold the open. We opened at 70.06, and we dropped to 69.89. So that would be $170 per contract traded. But then things changed. We pulled up to the BBC. We consolidated. Red and falling turned to blue and climbing. That's bullish. Then we get a bullish cross. That's when the blue line gets above the green line. And we ran to here. Now the market moves in legs. Leg, retracement. Again, the pullback held. And notice that we never got any red and falling. Okay. See how it stayed blue the whole time on that pullback? Pullback held. Shot us right up to the target. Above the target. And see that doji there? A reversal. Back to the BBC. Where the pullback held 1, 2, 3 30-minute candles in a row. Gave us a leg and a retracement. Now look where the market found support on this retracement. The top of the long target. And that sent us up almost to the highest weekly trading zone on crude. So there's a chance. But notice the step line is starting to hook right. If we consolidate here a little bit, that step line is going to go from the left side to the right side of blue and climbing. If that happens, then we'll most likely get a retracement back to the BBC. We trade every market exactly the same. This was the open last night. We had blue and climbing below us. That's support. So you knew not to go short on the open. Okay. And you got the BBC overhead, so you knew not to go long. Now you could have counter trend traded it and got your goal for the day. But we consolidated, and then blue and climbing turned to red and falling, and that took us down to the short target. And then down to the zone, which is 2682/83. That bounced us up. Not quite enough to get to the BBC. And that translates to weakness in the market. So we're back to the zone. Consolidate. Looked like we were going to go lower, but we just continue this consolidation. So, and silver, the heartbreaker. I mean, look at this. Over 2 days, we've gone from 33.33 to 30.75. That's about $12,000-$13,000 per contract traded. Okay, now obviously nobody knew to go short here at the high. So you're never going to get all of a move. But when you have a situation like this, okay, close below the BBC, if you sold the open of this candle, I mean, you could have got your goal and got out, but there was never any reason to exit the trade until the step line crossed red and falling, which means you would have had to initiate a new trade to get any of this. So we're consolidating at this zone for hours, and the lowest zone is way down here, so probably don't have to worry about that. Now the step line crossed red and falling, and look what's happening. Price is retracing back to the BBC. It happens again and again and again. Stay with it as long as it's running parallel, but when it crosses, expect it to move the other way. Which brings us back to the daily chart. And have we taken out that low yet? Okay, this low from Tuesday was 60.39.75. Today's low 60.41 1/4. So we have to consider Tuesday's low as potential support. It's only a couple points more that we need to drop. Look at it from a 30-minute time frame. See how the step line's crossing? Or it's starting to cross. It hasn't crossed yet. But already we're building a green candle, and it's a bullish engulfing candle. What does that mean? It means this candle has a lower low than the previous candle, and it has a higher high than the previous candle. That's a bullish engulfing candle. And in the proper context, which this is, I suspect price is going to try to get back up to the BBC, which means we may not hit the BBC today. But you got red and falling overhead, so at the open Sunday night, suspect it. And if things go according to plans, the CTAs will come out 5 minutes ahead of the open Sunday night, 5:55 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to try to do that. There may be some days when life gets in the way and I can't get them out that early, but what I'll do is if I have everything set, I'll post in the discussion group and the trial discussion group. CTAs are coming out at 5:55 p.m. Eastern. Okay? All right. As I said at the beginning, Michael won't be joining us today. He's got some family issues he's dealing with. Keep his family in your prayers. They are dealing with an elderly parent who needs to be taken care of, and they're doing just an outstanding job. Really proud of them, the way they've handled everything. So keep them in your prayers. Okay. Now, if you're tired of being on the outside looking in, and you're ready to get down to business, and not get rich overnight, but actually learn how to trade and, build a trading business, send an email to support@cfrn.net. In the subject line, all you got to do is put, I want to become a member. In the body of the email, put your name, put your phone number. We're not going to call you. We don't have a sales department. But Valerie will send you an email with information you should read so that you can make a well-informed and intelligent decision as to whether or not what we do is right for you. And if it is, then there's a link in that email that you can click to become a passport holder. And as soon as Valerie gets that notification that you've made the decision, She's going to send you a couple other emails. Now there's a lot of important information in those emails, so put them in a folder somewhere. It's going to have the golden keys to open all the private channels in Telegram. Just so much stuff. Okay, some of it you might not even understand what it is right now, but that's okay. Over the next few weeks, as you're training and learning the strategy and getting ready to go live, because you don't go live the first day. You got to learn the strategy first. That's why you became a passport holder. So you're going to trade in sim until you put together 10 consecutive days in a row where you reach your goal in 10 trades or less. Then the 2420 blueprint is going to give you the green light to go live with one contract. Now you're going to trade one contract until you increase your account balance by $2,000. At $100 a day, that's going to take about 20 trading days. Okay. Then the blueprint will give you the green light to add a second contract. The beauty of the second contract, not only does it double your earnings from $100 a day to $200 a day, but that first contract was funded with your startup capital, the money you used to open your account. The second contract is funded with profit you earned in the market. Now, the blueprint is going to tell you when it's time to add number 3, number 4, number 5, number 10, all the way up to number 20. But you only add one at a time when the blueprint says it's time, and you only add with profit you earned in the market. If you have the discipline to follow the blueprint, the chance of you blowing up another account is lessened greatly. Now, if you want to break the rules or, do your own thing, then you probably will blow up another account. But if you have the self-discipline and the patience to trade the strategy the way it's taught to you, the chance of your success is pretty good, because you have 2 hours of live training every trading day. Those are real trades with real money and live markets, real time. And you're encouraged to ask every question that pops into your head. And once you ask the question, you'll never have to ask it again, because the answer will always be the same. Now, you might ask it and then a week later forget the answer. So nobody's going to scold you if you ask it again. And when you ask a question and it's explained to you, okay, don't just nod your head and go, oh, okay. If you get an explanation and it still doesn't make sense, say so. Type into the chat, I heard what you said. Thanks for the answer. I still don't understand. There's no shame in that. Nobody sees what you type but me and Michael, Valerie when she's there, Bert when he's there. Okay? But we're not there to judge you. We're there to help you. We want to get you to the point where you can actually start answering questions for new people in the discussion group. We want you to become self-sufficient, but we don't want you to run off. To whom much is given, much is required. So, you're not obligated to show up and clock in every day and, help people. But once you have your own wings and you can get your goal every day without too much of a hassle, It's a really good feeling to help other people who once stood where you were. And then their success, your success becomes their success, and their success becomes even more success for you because you helped another human being achieve their goals. Along with the 2 hours of live training every day, you get private one-on-one mentoring, no extra charge. The strategy you learn, the indicators you own as a passport holder, fluid across all markets, all time frames. Futures, stocks, crypto, Forex, ETFs. Price flows the same across all markets and all time frames. You get the Logic 247 alerts around the clock. You get the concierge trade alerts, hopefully 5 minutes before the Globex Open each evening. Every Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, you'll get the weekly trading zones for the week. And put them on your chart because they're carved in stone. They're not going to change any whatsoever throughout the entire week. And you'll be able to attend the members only workshop every Thursday night. We had a great workshop last night, so if you're already a member and you weren't able to attend last night, go to the members only workshop channel in Telegram and watch it. As a passport holder, you'll have access to all the private channels in Telegram and around-the-clock support. Everything a trader needs, all under one roof, one low price. Again, no get rich quick. You got to show up. You got to ask the questions. You got to do the work. You got to develop the patience and the self-discipline. But whereas these people have no hope, you have hope. So, that's the deal. All right. Good word for the day. Yesterday we talked about you're called by His marvelous grace. Today we're going to talk about a time to be careful. 1 Corinthians 10:12. If you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. The time to be careful is after you have reached your goals and you're celebrating your victories. There are 3 crucial points in every battle, and believe it or not, the easiest one is sometimes the fight itself. The most difficult point is the period of indecision right before the conflict. Whether to stand and fight or run away, the battle between faith and fear. But by far the most dangerous period is the aftermath. With your resources spent and your guard down, you need to watch for things like overconfidence. That's a trading lesson right there. Dulled reactions and faulty judgment. Remember King David's story? In the spring of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, David remained at Jerusalem. Then it happened. He saw a woman bathing. Then David sent messengers and took her. 2 Samuel 11:1. Pay particular attention to the phrase, then it happened. You see, David chose to stay home rather than go to battle. Now, who knows why? Maybe his impressive record of successes made him soft, or he got careless, or maybe even arrogant. It was only a brief affair, but it changed everything. His peace vanished, his character was ruined, and his family life was destroyed. Don't fall prey to the perils of past victories. Remember your halt sign. When you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. You're in a vulnerable place and need to be extra careful. Resting on your laurels is synonymous with flirting with disaster. Trouble awaits the man or woman who dwells in the comfortable land of accomplished dreams. So the word for today is, if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. And remember, God loves a humble man or a woman. And that's our good word for today and for the week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading E-mini futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.